Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our question and answer with one and only Lindsay Wagner. Let's give her a hand. Yeah, it's a hand on her. Yeah. How you doing? Is this your first show, or is this something you do usually all the time?
Well, neither. I do it all the time, but it is not my first show.
Well,
I've done a few, and I've probably done a couple of them before. But, yeah.
well, I'm just kind of curious. Like a lot of people don't know, like how did you start in show business? Could you maybe explain how you got into show business? A little bit of your story.
I studied acting when I was really young. It was actually not something that I was pursuing. It was something that the people I babysat for invited me to come to his acting class. They felt I needed some kind of an outlet as a child. And that creative outlet would have been good for me for my personal growth. And so that began my interest in acting, but it was more kind of as interpersonal therapy, if you will, rather than from the outside saying, hey, I want to do that. I was very kind of locked up emotionally as a kid. I was very outgoing and demonstrative and like funny and jokes and stuff like that. But for me, which I'm sure most comedians can relate to, the more I was hurting, the more jokes I would tell. And
Right.
hiding that part of myself that was hurting. And when he took me into his class, he gave me a job. He gave me a scene that was very emotional, and about a young girl who was in a lot of pain and trying to cover it up, exactly what he was seeing in me. And in playing that character and seeing people respond on a positive level to everything that was inside of me. I mean, it was easy for me to express my pain because it wasn't me. You know, it wasn't mine. That's not how I feel. Right? And it was a character. But when I saw people saying, thank you, you expressed the kind of thing that was really good, you expressed things that I feel. When I started getting that kind of feedback, I realized how valuable the parts of me that I used to think I had to hide were. And I think it's something that we all kind of have in common.
You kind of acted it out.
And yeah, and so I started learning to value myself, all of myself, my pain as well as my abilities to make people laugh or smile or whatever, a lot more through that process. And then that's how I got interested in it. A friend of mine used to watch those classes, and he kept saying, when are you going to do this professionally? When are you going to do the class? I don't know. Maybe at a certain age I'll start, or I don't know, when I feel like I'm ready. Because Jimmy always used to say, wait until you feel like you're ready. Don't rush into this if you're going to do it professionally. Wait until you feel like you're grounded as a person, as an individual. And one day I was 22, I just woke up. And that morning I woke up and I was different than I was the day before. Somehow it was something like clicked in me, and I went, it's time. I feel like it's time. So I called him. He happened to be working in the mailroom of the Universal Studios at the time.
Right.
And he said, I called him, I said, Pete, guess what? I feel like I'm ready to start trying this. And he goes, great timing. And I said, why? And he said, because there's an actor's strike going on right now. Go back to sleep. So,
Not to count the competition you have to go through as an actress with like hundreds, if not thousands of people to get roles. The stress of that alone.
Yeah. Well, I think it was destined. It's almost as if I didn't really have much to say about it, because he's called me back actually later that same day and said, why don't you come in tomorrow and just do some reading for the casting directors here, because they are just sitting here with nothing to do. They have to come into work every day, for the ones that are on salary to Universal, and get used to doing readings. And I'll go and I'll see if I can, if they'll let you come in and do readings for them. I said, fine. So I went in the next day, And I read for a couple of them, one of which was casting director for Marcus Welby. And they happened to be in the process of negotiating with the union at the time to get an exemption so that they could finish filming the episode that they had started prior to the strike.
Is that around 1974?
No, that was 71.
71, oh, it was close.
And so they got their exemption. I read for this casting director, and they had a couple little parts that they hadn't yet cast. And one was a private nurse. I only had a few lines. And they called me the next day and said, would you come in and play this part? Excuse me? And
those are the days that the nurses wore those white outfits, I think, with those hats. So outdated. Nobody sees those anymore.
it's all scrubs and...
Right, scrubs and surgical outfits in different colors, red, green, blue, you know.
So that was my first part. And I called Pete. I said, Pete, I got a job. He goes, what? I said, but I don't even have an agent. What do I do? He said, you get one. So he gave me a name, and I called this company and all these people, and they said, sure, we'll negotiate this, this little deal for you. So they negotiated a little deal for me. A snowball.
That's why a lot of actors have their own stories. I find it so interesting how people have their story, where they come from, what city, all that stuff. But what about the Bionic Woman? Are we ready for that? Remember Bionic Woman? A spin-off, if I'm not correct, of the Bionic Man. Am I correct? And that was, I think, 1976, 77, somewhere in there.
75 was the first episode that I did on the $6 Million Man. And
wow.
Then they, as you know, they killed me off at the end. And they resurrected me later. And
beginning of the show, the Bionic Man went, all these parts of his running like 1,000 miles an hour up the highway, like that. Something like that, right? If I remember it. It's been so long. I mean, I guess it's on DVD, right?
It's going to be. The DVDs, by the way, are coming out in October. I know.
Yeah, DVD in October.
I don't know about the $6 Million Man. I know Bionic Woman is. I'm pretty sure his is as well.
How many seasons did that run, Bionic Woman?
We only filmed it for 3 seasons, and but it reran for about 15 years.
Wow.
Solid, just straight through.
Oh, Bionic Woman.
For a workshop for.
What was there a favorite moment in the whole series of Bionic Woman that you remember above everything else?
Tough question. There were so many. One that was. Can't really call it my favorite, might be the wrong word, but it certainly does stand out in my mind, was when we were shooting in Las Vegas, and it was the show, the Fembot show, and I think it was Fembot show, yeah. We jumped up and grabbed a hold of the skid of the helicopter, and they were trying to shake me off, the bad guys, right, hanging on, so they flew around the city and wiggled the helicopter, and of course I hung on and climbed up and saved the day. But the shot that was actually the close-up of me hanging onto the skid was not filmed until the very end of the day. They did the stunt girl, of course she was all harnessed and tied to the skid, and they would fly her around town, and she did some crawling up, whatever all they did. And it was like, oh my gosh, we were filming on top of was it the Maxim or the MGM, one of those hotels. And the sun was going down, and we still hadn't gotten my close-up, and they said, we have to get this before the sun goes down, quick, 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 quick. So I ran up, got there, and I said, where's the harness? They said, we don't have time. And I said, what do you mean we don't have time? And they said, we have the airbag here, we're just gonna take the helicopter up a little ways, you're gonna grab onto the skid, we're gonna hold you over the airbag just enough to have air behind your head so that it looks as though you're, flying around the town. He said, you're not gonna be 4 feet off that bag. We've done one-story jumps, it's not gonna be difficult, it's just gonna drop right into the bag and blah, blah, blah. Finally went, okay. So I grabbed a hold of the helicopter, but what we hadn't realized, because they had been working in another place and they brought the helicopter over just then, was that the wind had really come up very strong, which it does in the afternoon in the desert like that.
Wow. Anybody have any questions?
Wait a minute, she wasn't done yet.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Wow. Maybe you should be interviewing me then, I don't know.
So the wind came up, I grabbed a hold of the skid, and the helicopter was unable to stay over the airbag. So I'm holding on, and all of a sudden I'm seeing the airbag like this. I'm going, what are you doing? I'm yelling, you know, it's loud. And so they're trying to talk to me with the bullhorn, and then he goes up. Now he's like 15, 20 feet above the airbag, and it's getting smaller and smaller. And I was just freaking out. So finally they were yelling, okay, we got enough. I was trying to act, but my mind was elsewhere. And they finally yelled at the bullhorn, jump, jump. And I was going, I was so high that I couldn't get myself to let go. I was so terrified. My hands would not listen. I actually started talking to my hands. It was like they were somebody else's. You have to let go. You have to go now, you know. And of course I was swearing and everything else. And the guy's going, jump. He's yelling out of the mail. I couldn't do it. Finally, I don't know how I did it, but I jumped. I mean, I let go. And I hit the corner of the airbag, rolled off onto the ground, and everybody was laughing. And I thought, what on earth are they laughing about? I was terrified. And plus, I was just getting ready to break down. I was so frightened that, like, now that you know when you're safe after your car spins out, that's when you break down, you know, not while it's happening. Right. So I thought, I'm going to cry. I got to. My mom happened to be there that day. Can you imagine watching your kid in that situation? So I said, get me out of here. I just got to get out of here for a minute. And everybody's laughing and clapping. So we walked away. I went in the stairwell with my mom, and I just broke down and started crying. Had my catharsis and said, okay, I feel better now. What in the world were they laughing at? And she said, well, you have to admit, you were pretty funny and pretty cool when you did that. And I said, did what? And she said, when you held your nose. And I said, what? She said, when you let go, you went, and you held your nose like you used to do when you were taking diving lessons, and you wouldn't go off the high dive. I said, when I was 7. And she said, yeah, I remember when you used to, because I was a good diver, but when they get me to the high dive, I couldn't do it. And so I'd go like this, get ready to go, and as soon as my body started to fall, I knew that. And they finally gave up trying to teach me to high dive, and I must have reverted to the age of 7, being totally terrorized. Wow. Held my nose, put my hand up, and fell down into the airbag, and everybody thought I was so cool that I was making fun while I was doing it. So when I realized what they thought, we walked out of the stairwell, everybody's going, you okay? I'm going, yeah, nothing to it.
Is that in the final scene?
That's a great spot.
Can you see that?
No, of course they cut that
out. Okay, I was going to say.
Well, no, because you weren't supposed to see me fall at all. It was just to get off of the helicopter.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So because they couldn't land with me hanging from it. But he didn't want to come back down again because the wind was so strong. So he had to stay up there and let me drop so that he could then take it off or land if he was capable of landing with his wind. Yeah, because that was in the scene. I think I was supposed to then crawl up into the helicopter and get the bad guys and land it or something.
Well, I think that's it for today. Let's give a big hand for Lindsay Wagner. Bionic Woman on DVD. Thank you, Lindsay.